Hello guys, so today we're gonna see how to play logical chess. You don't have to know a lot of theory in order to play a good game, and we're gonna see today through this speed run across the elos. We're gonna start with an elo range between 500 and 1000. Oops, I just aborted the game. And we are going to focus on few basic principles. So we will have to play around the center, so we need to put our pawns in the center and bring our pieces to control the center too. So d4, d5, knight c3, knight f6, e3, knight c6, and now g3. So white is trying to put even more pressure on the center with bishop g2. And here, as I said, we need to put our pawns in the center. Here this move is possible because if he takes, I can take with my knight. And now, as we can see, white is continuing with his plan, controlling the center, and now he is attacking our pawn with 3 forces. We only have 2, so we need to protect our pawn. What I advise for beginners is to try to play with your pieces rather than your pawns, especially in the beginning. So here I want to play bishop to e6 instead of playing c6. I don't want to waste any time playing with my pawns. So here f4, he is threatening our knight. We're just gonna go back to c6. Here, even if white has chased our knight and we had to go back, but at the same time he weakened his pawn structure. Now e3 is a backward pawn that we can play around in the middle game. And in order to continue my development, I will play with my bishop. So we have 2 nice moves here. We could either play bishop b4 or bishop c5. I prefer bishop c5 because it puts immediate pressure on the pawn on e3, and especially because bishop b4 is intending to take the knight. I'm not planning to take his knight. Now, the simplest way to deal with this is to just castle, but we have to calculate. If we take here, for example, and he doubles his pawns, do we get to win this pawn? I think we get to win the pawn, but also we sacrifice our center pawn, so probably we just castle. Yes, he takes our knight on c6. We are very happy with this trade because he spent a lot of moves with his knight, knight to f3 and knight to e5, and then he took on c6, while we only played knight to c6 and we took back with the pawn, strengthening our pawn on d5. So here he's creating more weaknesses in the position. Now this square is gonna be very weak because it's not protected with any pawns. We can place our bishop there, we can place our knight there. So here the most logical way to deal with this is to place our bishop, because first it attacks the queen, and second it frees the file. It frees the file for our rook in order to put even more pressure on the e3 pawn. Here he played bishop to f3. It's a nice move. He's blocking our attack towards his queen. Now, in order to keep pressure, I think I'm not gonna trade the bishop, because if I trade the bishop, I'm just gonna help him because he can take with the queen and protect this pawn. I just want to keep the pressure. If he takes with the bishop, I take with the knight, and now I have one more force attacking the e3 pawn. Played a3. I think is intending to play b4, but here we already won a pawn, and his position is really bad right now. So I think we take with the knight attacking the queen. I want to keep the bishop. This bishop is very nice. It prevents his king from castling. And taking with the bishop was also fine, because if he takes, we take, and we're still attacking the queen, and he has to play some move like queen to e2. We'd probably think about rook e8, he castles. It doesn't castle, sorry, because our knight will be preventing castling. But anyways, I prefer to take with the knight in order to keep the bishop and keep some pressure on his king. And as you see, we have been able to win a pawn and get a very strong position, only playing logical moves. We didn't play any theoretical moves. We didn't need to do that. We only play logical chess. So his plan now is to push h6 in order to weaken our king structure, but because he doesn't have a dark squared bishop, I think we're okay just playing g6. We don't have any problems there. Now I just want to play my rook to e8 in order to x-ray his king and look for some tactical ideas. Now he played his knight to e2. Now he's blocking my rook, but at the same time he is pinning his knight against his own king. In this position I would love to simply play queen to g4. I'm putting pressure here, I'm putting pressure here, and my bishop is doing a really nice job cutting out squares from his king. So here I believe we can just probably swing back our bishop somewhere. Or even play something like queen to f3, but then he has rook here. Okay, let's not complicate things. I don't think he's attacking anything with this move, so we are just going to double up on this file. Yes, we continue with our plan. Note that he doesn't have rook to h4, because then we go here and he no longer has rook to f1. And here, what do we do here? I think we just move our bishop somewhere. We could even take this pawn, I think. Yes, he can take with the knight because he's pinned. If he takes with the pawn, we take check. If he takes with the queen, there is checkmate. Otherwise, he has to move here. There's checkmate here, or he moves here, and we will probably have a very strong attack against his king. Now, this is a double check, so he's obliged to move with his king, but then I don't think we can mate him right away, so we will just play rook to h2, which wins. Yeah, we're still cutting the king, and if he blocks we have mate, and if he moves here we have just another winning attack. Yes, our opponent resigned. We will quickly review this game. So d4, d5, knight c3, knight to f6, very logical moves. We are matching his center or central moves. He developed his knight, adding more pressure on e4 and d5. We matched that pressure with knight to f6, very logical. He played e3, solid move. He played knight c6, very logical. We're also trying to put some pressure on the center. He played g3, intending to play his bishop on g2, puts pressure on d5 and e4, and then we go e5, striking in the center. And this move is only possible because we have our knight on c6, which is protecting the pawn. He took the pawn, we took, then bishop g2, putting pressure on our d5 pawn. Now we have to protect. C6 was fine, but I believe bishop e6 is even better because we are developing a piece and we are also protecting the pawn. And try to remember a golden rule which says that moves that are multi-purpose are usually better moves than other options. When you play a move that serves more than a purpose, it's usually a good move. So bishop e6 serves two purposes, protecting the pawn and developing a piece. So f4, attacking our knight, but as I said, even if he gains a tempo on our knight, but he weakens the e3 pawn, as you will see later in the game, we're gonna play around that weakness. So knight to c6, knight to f3, and then we develop our bishop. We didn't play our bishop to e7 or to d6. E7 is a passive move. To d6 it blocks our queen from protecting the pawn, and bishop to c5 is the most logical one because it attacks the pawn on e3, and bishop to b4 would have been also interesting because of ideas like knight to e4, for example. But anyways, we went for bishop c5, knight to e5. Remember, there is also a very interesting rule, which is to take is a mistake. Don't take unless it's really necessary. So we didn't take his knight here because if we take, he takes, attacking our knight. If we move, he can trade our d5 pawn for his e5 pawn, and that is not an interesting option to us. So we just castle, we ignore that. He takes, we consolidate the center with pawn takes on c6, and now our pieces are free to roll on the board instead of keeping an eye on the d5 pawn, which is now protected with the pawn. And now another mistake was to play h4. Now we see that the square on g4 is very weak, and we use that immediately with bishop to g4. Bishop to f3, remember again, to take is a mistake. If we take, he takes with the queen, protecting everything, preparing to castle, and we just play queen to d7, protecting our bishop. He takes, we take with the knight, of course. We don't take with the queen because he gets to trade, and he probably moves his king in order to protect his pawn, and with no queens on the board we might not be able to punish his king move because it's already an endgame situation. So knight to g4, here played a3. Now we just take the pawn, bishop takes, bishop takes. Here it's important to remember that taking with the knight was our choice because we wanted to keep his king tied down in the center, preventing him from the right of castling. And our bishop is very nice on this diagonal. There are no points that are blocking him. That's why we took with the bishop. Now rook g8, trying to exploit his weak king in the center. Knight to e2, and then queen to g4, putting more pressure on the pawn on g3, the knight on e2, and our position is just winning. Here again, remember, you don't have to waste move on fake attacks. Even if you played h6, he's not really attacking anything. So we just continue with our plan. We need to exploit the pin in the e file. So we play rook to e4, and then we play rook a to e8, and then we have this tactic which wins the game. Bishop takes f4, putting pressure on the knight on e2, and you know, this position is winning. So we're going to continue with this series. We're gonna try to climb up the ladder just using logical chess, logical moves, logical principles without knowing any chess theory. If you have any suggestions, if you have any questions, feel free to drop the comments, and see you in the next video.